Hector, first things first. It's a pleasure to count on you as the first guest of this. I will call it like second season of the Redefine the Game, because last year or 2 years ago I was doing this as Connect Dots, but our conversation marks a new beginning for this project, and I'm super excited to get to know a little bit more about you and obviously more about your project. So thank you so much for accepting the invite. And I always love to start with this question: how are you really feeling today?
Great question. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and yeah, excited that you're picking this up again, and yeah, really glad that we've got this chance to chat. How am I feeling today? I'll be completely honest. I feel a bit ill today. I've had a lot of health stuff the last like 2 or 3 years, which had got a lot better, and then I've just gone through a little patch the last couple of weeks of a few things flaring up. So I feel a little bit nauseous, but I also feel like excited. I think there's lots of exciting things happening with Unplugged, with the business. I'm feeling super focused at the moment. So yeah, just very optimistic. It's a nice time of year as well. Like, we're recording this in March, so both of us being in Europe, the days are getting longer. Feels like spring is around the corner. So I'm excited, and then I'm very excited for this conversation as well.
It's I love the energy that comes with your answer, and this makes me think about like what's been on your mind lately. Anything that's been keeping you up at night, good or bad?
Oh, big questions. Yeah, I mean, I've had a very, I mean, to be completely honest, I've had let's say, eventful start to the year. I started some therapy at the start of this year, which was, I mean, I find therapy very valuable. I think I enjoy that kind of process of introspecting and facing up to the the harder things that we don't like to look at about ourselves. So that has been a incredibly intense and productive experience so far. So that's been weekly and very challenging. So it's kind of, I'm someone who, I think one of the things to come out of it is I've got very good at holding people at arm's length. So, I can talk I thought I was very vulnerable, for example, and I'm very open. So I can talk very openly, but there's a difference between being open and vulnerable. So I will talk in this kind of assertive, intellectualizing voice that I'm using now, which actually might sound open and so on, but potentially keeps things at arm's length. So that process has been very revealing, made some very big changes off the back of that. One of them was ending a relationship, which is about 4 weeks ago now. So that's obviously been very front of mind, because breakups are, never easy, sad. But then, off the back of that, I think feeling a boost of energy and excitement about what's next. I think when there are these hard conversations we need to have, things that we may not admitting to ourselves, then it's always horrible before you have them, but then afterwards is very liberating. So that has been a huge part of the last couple of months, as well as lots of things on the business side. And I think being more, we can go into it in a second, but yeah, anyway, just lots of change in the last couple of months. So it's all been very front of mind, but I'm feeling just very positive about taking action and making big changes and being brave, I think.
Okay. Wow. Is it the first time that you are on therapy, or like
I've done some therapy before. So I did 4 months of something called psychosexual therapy in 2021, which was very revealing. I think before that I'd been, and I'm sure this conversation is going in different directions to what you expected, but before that I had been incredibly avoidant when it came to relationships. So I couldn't stay in a relationship for more than 2 months. So I get this like deep claustrophobic feeling. Did 4 months of this therapy, which is basically therapy around sex and relationships. And it came down to teenage anxieties around sex. And that had just created this negative image of relationships in my mind. So that really worked and got in a fairly long-term relationship straight off the back of that. So I felt like that did the job, so to speak. And then I've done a little bit of therapy since, but never quite connected with the therapist. With this one, again, I find it deeply challenging, but I think that is important. So I actually I ended last year, felt like I would like to do some therapy. And so I went to see two different therapists that came recommended. The first one was this young woman who was very bright and zippy and had a good conversation, kind of very, very fast back and forth, and came out of it feeling really good. And I was like, great, I'm going to work with her. And then I went to see this other chap who's a Scottish guy, and he just, like, within 5 minutes, I just felt so deeply challenged. And I came out of that one just feeling like, I'd been hit by a truck, and I just thought, oh God, I've got to go for that guy. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot to be said for just facing up to the discomfort, frankly. I think, having this mechanism of keeping everything at arm's length means that I've skirted around discomfort for a very long time, which has led to other issues, I think. So one of the things that's come out of the therapy is that potentially just having this attitude of like, I'm fine, everything's fine, I'll be fine. And putting everyone else ahead of me meant that there hasn't been much self-care, which is ironic because I've done a lot of, meditation, these kind of things. But I put myself in situations that are, very unhealthy. So, for example, all these health issues came from kind of moldy houses, and I was living in these, very unhealthy places, bad health, really not looking after myself in many ways. I just kind of endure. So a lot of what's facing up now, what I'm facing up to now, is this need to take care of myself and just not have this I'll be fine no matter what attitude. I think it's great to keep the resilience that's associated with that, but also looking after yourself, because I just felt the last few years I've just accumulated this weight, just like more and more and more, and just gritted my teeth and just be like, I will be fine, I will endure. And I think that's been a big driver behind these health issues and other challenges.
That makes me think about something that I would like to know from you more, like on the perspective of the founder that is trying to build a business, a brand that's related to self-care. But I think that this question is more, that fits better more towards the end. So I'll try to create a sticky note on my mind, and we'll go there in a minute. Before talking about the journey of having the idea that led to the creation of Unplugged, I would like to know two things. One, regarding, just because you were talking about therapy, is there, like, from the sessions that you had already, is there anything that you learned about you that serves as something that is helping you with your role as the founder of this project? Like something that just popped up in a conversation while we were having therapy, that made you feel like, now I understand this behavior, or now I understand that this might help me with my role as a founder. Is there anything special that happened during a therapy session that is helping you as the manager of this project?
Yeah, there's been a huge amount. It's amazing how closely interlinked these things are. And actually, one of the big drivers behind starting some therapy was the potential benefits for the business, because I do think that the founder is the biggest bottleneck for any business, and just how that founder is, how they act, how they see the world, all of these things. So almost the highest leverage thing that I can do for the rest of the company is work on myself and my limitations and all of the good stuff that comes with that. So I think to be specific, around the point around, as I said, what's come out of it is that I will just be fine with bad situations and just be like, well, I'm resilient and I'll be fine no matter what. Has meant in my life that I haven't, I put up with things that aren't ideal, and I haven't therefore been assertive enough in fixing these things, and haven't been. I've almost taken pride in being highly agreeable. So I'm laid back to a fault. I'm agreeable to a fault. Uh, so that has some benefits. I think it makes you very easy to work with. There's a lot of benefit for being easy to work with because it means people want to work with you. So that's great. But I think it's meant at work specifically that there are things where I should have been more relentless on, I should have been more demanding on, that we've ended up, with situations that aren't optimal. So I think one of the things I'm really learning now going forward is there are things where I need to push people more than I did before. I need to be a little more demanding, be a little more involved with various things. And so that's uncomfortable sometimes, especially going from a place of being very hands off, very high trust. And that's still very much, I think that's a great strength as well, being able to delegate well and empower people and all of these things. And I still very much want to run a company where people are empowered to figure stuff out themselves. But there is just also an element of, only the founder is best placed to really kind of get into the weeds with something, really demand extra level, these kind of things. So yeah, I think it's I'm probably doing this for 8 weeks now, six to 8 weeks, and I've become much more assertive. I've become more relentless, I think. There was an element of holding something back. There was an element of taking pride in the fact that I'm always meditating and reading and all of these kind of things. Reconciling that has been really interesting because there's a huge amount of benefit in those things, but then there is just this unnatural requirement of making a startup a big success and what's required to get there. So I think it's balancing that where, and then obviously my point earlier around actually taking care of myself is really important as well. So it's just reconciling these two things where I think there is an extra level of relentlessness and assertiveness that I can and am finding. But on the flip side, want to make sure that I'm also taking care of myself so that I'm best able to come and do that job. And I think I was maybe taking care of myself in ways that covered the kind of bigger issues, that I would almost meditate through some very toxic situations, like situations in the past when we've been very low on cash for an extended period, and I would just meditate more and just endure. And is that actually the healthy thing to do would go and be to raise enough fucking money so that we're not in this situation.
Yeah. Sometimes I totally agree with you, because sometimes people feel that I'm feeling bad, I'm taking care of myself just because I'm meditating or journaling. But sometimes, yes, that's a solution, but maybe that also serves as like a hurdle, and you are hiding yourself from better, quote unquote, better solutions, and you are just hiding yourself under a solution that maybe just hiding the problems. So I totally agree with you that maybe meditation, journaling, sometimes you reach a point where it's not enough. And I really love the fact that somehow you have you feel that you need to take care of yourself. That's number one. And it's also important as the founder and the manager of a business to know how to take care of people, how to deal with people, because in the end, humans are difficult sometimes, right? But what I feel is that there's no, in many brands, and especially taking into account that we are talking about like fitness, sports, wellness, health brands, there's no like this, there is no culture of taking care of people. And in the end, we are, again, a fitness, outdoor, adventure, wellness, health company that doesn't take care of people, because the managers don't know how to deal with people, don't know how to deal with the problems from their employees. So I really love the fact that somehow you are open to learn more about that, because in the end, it's your business. What's, in your opinion, what's the what's one thing, and now trying to just to start to go and talk a little bit more about the your business Unplugged. What's one thing that people get totally wrong about tech addiction?
It's a great question. I think I think we massively underestimate just how much it impacts us. Like there's a subconscious awareness, but there's not a conscious awareness. And like there's some amazing research that just having your phone switched off on the table reduces your IQ, so your performance in an IQ test, and also reduces the empathy between two people. So that's having it switched off. And if you're scrolling it for 11 hours a day, and I think it's nuanced, right? Because I think we have this. It's very easy to think like this time it's different, and we are just at this stage where humanity has finally got it wrong, and we've opened Pandora's box, and now we're screwed. It's actually, if you look through history, there are many examples that are comparable to this. Like very famously, Socrates was really against the written word because up until that point, everything had been this oral culture, and his point was that in an oral culture, when you're holding all these ideas in your head, then that's where virtue comes from. That's where our memory and just kind of ability to reason with the world comes from. And he thought the writing would ruin all of that. And on some level, he was right. But then there's an amazing amount that has unlocked, and amazing amount that we have gone on to do as a species because of the depth of knowledge that can be transferred from the written word, right? And I think it's similar now, which is there are definitely negatives, and obviously that's kind of big belief doing this business, and it reduces our ability to focus, it reduces our empathy, it reduces our kind of brain power, basically, because you're outsourcing more and more of these things. But it also unlocks a huge amount as well, and it will unlock a huge amount going forward. So I think there's this interesting thing of everything has changed. That the fact that our lives are now 11, 12 hours a day on screens does change everything. It changes our brain. It changes how we think. So we're almost having this next evolution of humanity. And I think definitely want to shy away from using good and bad, because I think it's easy to bucket it. It's subjective. And I think we are far too quick as a species to assign something good or bad. This is a good person. This is a bad person. This thing is good. This thing is bad. And it just is. So there is just this new technology that has come in the last 10, 20 years. And it fundamentally changes how we live. And I think, so to answer your question, I think what people get wrong or they don't appreciate is just how much this affects. It's just how much this affects our life, and just how much this shapes our brains, because neuroplasticity is real. If we are spending 11 hours a day on these devices scrolling, which is time we might have spent climbing trees or talking to people or whatever it might be, it's going to build a very different brain. And that new brain will have benefits, but there's going to be a lot of side effects as well. Is that a happier brain, that new brain? I suspect not. I think it's a more anxious brain. It's a more distracted brain, but it's a brain that understands this new digital world we're going into better as well. So there's so much nuance around this topic, and I think people really try and boil it down into good and bad. And so yeah, I just think there's not enough kind of deep discussion around the implications.
One of the things that I really, really love about your project is I actually wrote about this last week, I think, which is the solution that you present, the solution that, the name of the solution is Unplugged, and obviously this reflects many other things. It's super, super simple. Well, simple, which is go spend a week or a weekend, whatever, in nature with no technology, or like a lower level of interaction with technology, and go be happy. That, and this is a super simple solution when we are more and more listening and reading about like AI driven solutions and super tech based solutions, and then you have Unplugged. Hey, just go spend a weekend in nature, just use this locker to put your phone and go be happy, like there's so many things. Just look up. And that's what I really like about the about Unplugged and the work that you're doing. Um, what's the moment that made you go, okay, I need to build Unplugged? What was the moment, or if there's a moment?
Yeah, for sure. So I had this in 2019. Was working for a tech startup. I've been there for 3 years. I was the second employee. My co-founder Ben was the first employee. We did the whole high growth, international expansion, a lot of fun, mess behind the scenes as these things often are. I just got kind of sick, and I'd say very dissatisfied with my life and where I was at that point. I was going out a lot, drinking a lot at that time. I was 25. A friend of mine recommended this silent retreat in the Himalayas, which was a Buddhist temple on top of a mountain. And I initially kind of laughed it off. I can't do that. What would the guys at work think? And eventually I thought, what have I got to lose? So I got myself out there. And this retreat was, it was literally on top of a mountain. You gave the best thing about it was you gave your phone in when you got there. You spent 10 days completely cut off from the outside world. That was an incredibly profound experience. And I came back from that just with, for the first time in my life, like really sure of myself. I think I'd always had this like nagging insecurity, and that I just came back with that, just like anything possible, everything will, yeah, I have everything I need to be happy. I think was the big takeaway. But I didn't intend to quit my job when I left that retreat. Got home and I had to come back straight away for some like quarterly planning meeting. And 2 days into that, we were about 70 people at this point, trying to raise a big Series A, losing a lot of money, so in a very unsustainable position. 2 days after I got back from the retreat, my boss got the call from the last VC that they were putting out, and we weren't going to get this funding round done. So that night, he got rid of half the company, closed the US office, closed Australia, and overnight that just changed into a much less exciting proposition. And so had a week after that, just kind of twiddling my thumbs. He was going back and forth with investors. I was just thinking like, maybe it's time to go and do something else. And I think worked out timing wise very well for me, because I'd just come back from this retreat. So I had a bit of a idea that anything was possible. And I'd been thinking a lot that year about unplugging. I read a book called Digital Minimalism about 6 months before that, by a guy called Cal Newport, which does what it says on the tin. He talks a lot about unplugged and unplugging in there. So actually, after reading that book, before I was thinking about cabins, I tried to buy the domain unplugged.com, and it was 100 grand or something, so I didn't get it. But I just thought that would be a really cool name for a business. And then after this retreat, was thinking about what to do next, applied to a couple of jobs. And then I remember a friend had mentioned some cabin concepts to me. Just thought, well, what about that? And why not take that and then also do something in this digital detoxing space? Because what was interesting is a lot of all the concepts out there would very much just cabins, Airbnbs in nature, which is obviously a cool business as well. But it was like, well, what if we take this a step further and actually lock people's phones away? So I spent 3 hours that Friday night Googling cabins, just like, looking at where we could buy them, how much they cost, all this kind of thing. And then was like, yeah, this will probably work. And so quit my job on Monday. So that was all moved very quickly.
Again, going back to the start of the conversation, that was brave, I would say. And so this was in 2019, right? When you decided to move on and start to work with, or start building Unplugged. In the end, if you had to, well, this is not I'm not looking for a pitch, but what's the problem that you were trying to solve with Unplugged? Like you can look at it as the problem that you're trying to solve, or the value proposition that you offer to the audience, to your persona.
Yeah, for sure. So what we're really trying to do is, it's about perspective. So everything, all the momentum in society is towards spending more and more time online, more and more time on our devices. You look around on the tube in London nowadays and everyone is just face down in their phone. And what we are looking to do is change people's perspective about their relationship with their phones, so that we can move that momentum in another direction. So we got some criticism when we started off about, you can't change a habit in 3 days, and this isn't a good solution. And that misses the point. It's not about changing the habit, it's about changing the perspective. Because once you go and actually get offline for 3 days, like that's what we're really focused on. Like, can we actually get you off your phone for 3 days in nature and in a beautiful setting? I think the cabin's really important. It has that aspirational quality that actually gets people coming to do this. And then if you can get people to do that, then you just have this amazing shift in perspective. One, because you feel this. So the first day you're actually a bit more anxious because when you get off your phone, you feel some anxiety and phantom buzzing, and you feel a bit like you've lost a limb. But then on the second day, you just get this deep sense of calm. And what's amazing is like that is how humans are built to operate. We are not built to be to live with this low level anxiety that most of us are walking around with in this day and age. And so just by showing people that's possible, as you were saying, like it's not complicated. We're not trying to give you anything, add anything to your life. It's just by taking something away. Just by putting your phone away, staying off it for, the first 36, 48 hours, then you start to see this change. So we make sure all of our stays are 3 or 4 nights because we want people to actually be there long enough to get this benefit and then really be able to sit with that. And then what happens is after people stay, they realize that the world doesn't end when you go offline for 3 days. Because that's the crazy thing. It's like when we mention this to people, it evokes a very strong reaction one of 2 ways. Either people are like, that sounds incredible, get me there right now. Or they're like, no fucking way I could do that. Like, no chance. And I think a lot of people, and, I feel it sometimes as well, just have this narrative that I cannot go offline for 3 days. Like, I am too important. The world needs me too much. My business needs me, my family needs me, like, whatever it might be. So I think by actually getting people to come and do this and try it, they've realized that I can do this. And then once they have that knowledge, we get people who come back and, stay with us time and time again. We get people who, will just, if they're a couple, they'll start doing a date night once a week and leave their phones at home, or, go out for a day and leave their phones behind. So it's really just what I found as well in my own life is the more time I spend offline, the more I crave time offline. So that's really the shift that we're trying to make here, which is how we change people's perspective so that they, see the benefits of this time offline and they actively seek that rather than actively seeking more time scrolling, more time watching Netflix, all the things that we're being pulled towards as a society.
You're speaking my language, because I work mostly with online communities, social media, content creation, and honestly, this is becoming more and more toxic, I can tell you. And I've been sharing this idea for at least 1 month already, that what I feel right now for me, because reducing the screen time is not enough for me. It's becoming what I'm feeling right now is I seriously need, and I would say that 1 week wouldn't be enough, but it would be a great start. Like, I really need to unplug myself from the phone, especially from the phone, and just go to a remote place, only maybe with a notebook, and that's it, Yeah. Because again, I'm starting to feel like this becoming like super, super toxic for me, because again, you can feel it. You can feel it. If you can feel it. So, like the name of this podcast, this project is Redefine the Game, and I personally believe that the brands that are trying to redefine the game, they are super super vision, purpose driven, values driven, that somehow they can change the world, or at least they transform lives. Talking about the vision of the project, and imagine if Unplugged as a brand, as a company, as a business succeeds at the highest level, how do you see the world, or how does the world look different in, let's say, 10 years, if the company succeeds?
For sure. Well, I think what's really interesting there is like the future is much more malleable than we think. I think we have this, impression that it's very deterministic and, you know, it's always going to follow a certain way. But I think it's much more shaped by individuals and small groups of individuals than we think. So I do think there's a huge opportunity to move society in a different direction. Clearly, technology is here to stay. Like, we are just entering this new age of this new digital age, which I think, again, will bring a lot of amazing benefits. But what we're really looking to do as a brand, as I said, is we want to change people's perspective about, you know, spending time offline. And so by us succeeding, by us even existing, you don't even have to come and stay, but even if you hear about us, it makes you question, like, oh, that's interesting. Like, could I spend 3 days off my phone? So even by us existing, I think we start that conversation. And, you know, if we can get to a stage where we have thousands of cabins across the UK and Europe, and we have, you know, tens or hundreds of thousands of people come to do this every year, then that will really move society in an interesting direction. What we're trying to do is really normalize actually going and spending 3 days offline in a cabin. As you say, like, it's, you know, 3 days is a start, right? So that there's something, again, you get this deep sense of calm after 24 hours, but then there's almost another step down that you do after 4 or 5 days, and there's another step down you do after 15 to 20 days. So, I mean, it's obviously not as kind of predictable as that, but there's so much more benefit just living this more unplugged life. And I think especially when we're going into this future society of being so online, then there's just huge advantages to our happiness, to our focus, to our creativity, of having this practice, of having this tool. So for us as a company, it's really about, can we carve out a place for this in society? You know, can we normalize coming and spending time offline? So that is what it will look like. And yeah, I'm very confident we'll get there.
I love the idea that you are like somehow carving your own rules and your own path, and again creating this need on people, and that's very brave. That's very bold. Can you guide us through like the customer experience? Like how do you get people to actually unplug? Like, what's the experience with the brand?
Yeah, for sure. So it's really a behavioral psychology problem, because, you know, when we first launched, we, you know, advertised on Instagram. People saw our account on Instagram. They came to stay. We were checking people in ourselves at the beginning. We tried to take their phone off them, and they were like, "No way! What are you doing?" So we realized that it's won or lost before people even get there, and which is why, you know, it's harder than you think. I've spoken to so many hospitality operators who have like tried to do digital detoxing as an add-on, and it just doesn't work, because it was a bit of an afterthought. If there's any doubt in people's minds about whether or not they're going to come to do this, they'll make an excuse and they won't. They'll be like, yeah, I might do it. Let's see how I feel when I get there. And then you get there and it's like, yeah, but, you know, I could deal with keeping my phone on me for like these reasons. So the whole brand needs to be around, this is what you're coming to do, so that, you know, people know that it's serious and this is happening, and can get excited about that, right? So, you know, if you really feel that, you know, we're coming for this experience, you tell work, you tell your family, then that's how we get people actually locking their phones away. And then once we've got people to that stage, it's self-police. So you've got a lockbox with a padlock you close yourself. You have the key in a sealed envelope. There's enough friction that you're not opening on night one, but it's there if you need it. And then the other really important factor is giving people the tools that they might need their phone for. You know, so you've got head torches, you've got a Polaroid camera, a Nokia in case of emergencies, you've got a map for getting around. So all of these excuses that people might have, I'll just check this on my phone, and then, you know, you get a Instagram message popping up, and then you go on that, and then you go down the whole rabbit hole. So really, it's about empowering people to actually be able to come and spend that time offline. And then it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, because the more that we grow as a brand, the more people come and do this and go back and rave to it about their friends, and then, you know, those friends hear about it and come and stay, and like there's a kind of wonderful cascading effect. So for us, it's really just making sure that everyone knows that we are serious about you're coming to lock away your phone.
What's the most surprising thing you have learned from your customers so far?
Well, one really surprising thing from the start was we were checking people in, checking them out, so we'd see what people looked like pre and post the stay. And in 3 days, just 3 days offline, like, people look 10 years younger, which is absolutely crazy. So I think the learning there is like we get haggard by by our everyday lives. And we don't see just how much stress and tension we're carrying in our face. And so it's unbelievable in that short period of time just to see how much lighter and younger people look. So yeah, it's a big learning about just that what we're accumulating in our day to day.
Like, do you see, going back to the carving your own rules and paths and creating a new need on people, do you see like a parallel growth on, because again, humans are tough, and to change behaviors, it's not everyone that, just like you said, or like, oh, no, fuck it, I don't want it. But since 2019, do you see like a growth on people searching more for these types of experiences, and this leads to more people looking for Unplugged, and this leads to the growth of the business, or it's more like ups and downs?
Well, I mean, there's a huge amount more search for it now, but it's hard to attribute that to causation versus correlation. Where is it that people are searching more and we just happen to be at the right place, or is it that by us existing and people coming and talking about us and our marketing, ironically, on social media, that we are creating more demand? Probably more the latter, to be honest. I think that conversation is evolving outside of just us. So I think there are other interesting books in the space, projects in the space. Like, the narrative around this topic is increasing, which definitely brings it front of mind with people and gets more people searching for it. But I think specifically for coming and doing what we're doing, a lot of that will be due to the impact we've had in this short period of time. And I think especially in the UK, we've been going for 4.5 years now. Like, it's starting to become a little bit culturally significant. Where it's it's starting to become much more talked about.
Yeah, because like in the end, you need to. It's not only a product; it's an experience, and it's about like this changing of behavior. So, what I'd like to know a little bit more is that, like, how do you ensure that the customer experience goes beyond just using your product, and somehow you create a deeper experience or a deeper connection with the customer?
Yeah, so I think there's two really interesting points in that. One is, it's all about the detail. It's all about the little touches you have in the cabin, the communication beforehand, how you're framing it for people. Because again, I think we are an experience company, not a product company, and every interaction customers have with the brand helps shape that experience. So I think it's really being very careful about how we talk about things, and just making sure that we're really helping take people on that journey. So that's a big focus, and specifically it's things like you grind your own coffee in the cabin, for example. So it's just something which is a bit more friction, but it helps slow people down, really just encourage them to kind of be present and be in the moment. So I think there are all these little touch points that we try and sprinkle through the experience to get people excited about the fact they're coming to lock away their phone, but also help them on that journey and help them go through that process. And I think secondly, it's just like every startup is so shaped by the insight that you're working towards and the belief that you're working towards, and the kind of mission, the vision that you're working towards. And I think by us having this very unique, there's other cabin concepts out there, and I think they're doing some really cool stuff. It's a great space. I obviously love going and staying in beautiful cabins in nature. But what's interesting is all of them shy away from locking away your phones. There's a lot of other concepts out there where they have Wi-Fi, or you use your phone to guide you around the cabin, all of these kind of things. So it's fundamentally a very different mission. And so they are then looking through this problem of creating an experience, creating a product through a very different lens. They're going to make very different decisions. So I think what really helps is just having this unique insight and this focus of, this is the change we're trying to make. This is the experience we're trying to make. This is what really matters. And yet that then goes into every decision, So I think it's really making sure that, again, everything we do and say and talk about is around, like, we are creating an experience here to get people off their phones in nature. And I think if you can, like, a lot of the work is just instilling that in the, in the company community, just how we, and again, I think you can get into a lot of kind of jargon around communication values, all this kind of stuff. It's literally just how you fucking talk about it as a company. How do you talk to each other? What are you saying? How much are you banging on about these things? And I think, my job and everyone else in the team really is just to really make sure that we are communicating, like, this is what we're trying to do. This is the change we're trying to make in the world. This is the experience we're trying to create for people. And then all of the decisions we make, from the ones that are seemingly completely unrelated to, the pre-stay flow to everything, is seen through this lens as much as everything else, right? And there are going to be decisions that it doesn't matter for, and there are going to be some that it really does.
Of course. How big is the team right now?
We are 13 people, so 7 in the UK and then 6 remote.
Okay. And right now you are, so you have cabins mostly in the UK. How many cabins do you have right now?
So we've got 37 at the moment, of which 1 is in Spain and the rest are in the UK.
Okay. You were talking about like a culture in team, and going to, now I just will use the sticky note that I have in my mind. Looking at other brands that are, again, redefining the game with like this values mission. It's not only about the product, it's also about culture. It's also about like people. It's also about like changing people's behaviors or creating new needs. Based on your experience, and also based on the starting point that led you to create Unplugged, and also looking to other similar, this like mission purpose driven brands, do you believe the founder's experience and story shapes the brand, or it's the opposite, that the brand shapes the founder's vision?
Definitely the first one, the founder's vision shapes the brand. Like, fundamentally, at the start, it's just the vision, before you've created anything, before you've created any materials. And everything you then create is through that lens. So I think it's not only, I think companies are just such an embodiment of how the founders see the world, their personalities, all of these kind of things. And so I think that if you look at a company, like, that is one of the real intangible assets, which is, how does this founder see the world? Like, what is the unique insight? Like, how well do they understand, the game they're playing, the problem they're solving, all of these kind of things. And so I think people probably underestimate just how important that is, and just how much that will play out, because they're making, as a company, hundreds and thousands of decisions through that framework for years and years and years. It's right down to like who you hire and how you talk to them and how they then think about it, and all of these things. Like, it just seeps into absolutely everything. So I think you can have two companies that start out very similar, and then we'll just converge and go off in very different directions based on those different narratives of how they see the world.
Can you give us, if possible, like practical examples of strategies in, like, on social media or even with customer experience that you tried, that you implemented? Because yesterday I remember saw that I saw a post on LinkedIn saying, here are 3 brands that are doing social media in a different way, and Unplugged was one of those examples. What, like, beyond this, like, new concept of, it's not only a cabin, because, like, this is actually an experience that it's reflected obviously on the cabin. Are there any strategies, ideas, projects, content that you are experimenting and you see that this is working for the brands and might serve as an inspiration for other brand builders?
Yeah, lots of things. I think one thing that's easy for me to talk about here is, the phrase personal brand gets thrown around a lot these days. But people do really buy from people, and so I think there's a lot to be said for as a founder, putting yourself out there. And I think the more authentic, the better. And all of the pressure at the moment is towards, it's all the same LinkedIn agencies running the same people's accounts. So all of the content turns out very similar. So I think there's a real opportunity. There's almost an arbitrage of just actually being out there and being a bit different and being a bit authentic and just real. Like I posted a lot in LinkedIn in the early days and then tried to like hack it and hire ghostwriters and, fucking went in these engagement pods and it was all just a complete mess and ended up burning myself out with it. It just felt so inauthentic. And so I stopped posting for a long time. And then I started posting again because there's some guys in the UK who they have a a kind of tailoring company, a cool startup called Batch London, and those guys just post. They post maybe every day, but regularly on LinkedIn. And again, I'm not a particularly well dressed guy, but so never really thought about buying suits or these kind of smarter things. But I just see their posts every day, like don't think too much about it. And then when it came to that, I was going to a wedding or something like that. My first thought is, I should check out those Batch London guys and see if they've got anything there. And it just made, this was a couple of months ago, and it just made me realize that I think in the past, you can chase the short-term wins with these things of like, did this post obviously drive bookings? And no, it didn't. So then that can get a bit demoralizing. But there's a lot to be said for just keeping front of mind. And there's this amazing like long-term compounding, just like shouting into the void for months and months and months and years and years and years, and really just being authentic and being honest, and like people really connect with that. So off the back of that, I've just got posting again, probably 3 times a week. We'll keep it simple. I'm not worried at all about engagement. I just put stuff out there, stuff I find interesting writing. And again, that is, I think, not a whole marketing strategy, but it plays an important role in that because it just keeps you front of mind for people. And then you've got the rest of the marketing engine. We obviously do a huge amount of other work, which is much better executed by our marketing team on that top of funnel. So a lot of influencer stuff, a lot of organic social. And so, I think we do a really good job as a brand at just that awareness piece and just getting on people's radars, on their minds. So ironically, given the business we're in, it's just really how kind of present you can stay in people's psyches. Like I think that's a huge amount of marketing in this day and age. There's so much noise out there. And again, so many things get banded around, like influencers and personal brand and all that kind of stuff. And I think people lose touch with the why, like why are we doing this and what role does it play in getting to someone to come and try our product or experience, whatever it is. So yeah, I've just had a bit of a mindset shift in terms of like, actually it's just about that. It's just about that ongoing awareness and that compounding awareness. And I think for us specifically, like the positioning really helps everything we do because it has that unique positioning that is very emotive. So it brings up a strong emotional reaction with people. Then every other marketing activity we have is somewhat enhanced, and it just means that there's that extra level of when we do something, people talk about it a bit more because they are so much, it's so front of mind for them, their relationship with their phone. So I think, there are 2 takeaways there would be people buy from people. So, if you can go out there and be authentic, and it might be that, you really just don't have I think there's like a founder channel fit. And so it might just be that you are not someone who's well suited to writing LinkedIn posts. And if it's really not working and you don't enjoy it, then just don't do it. And I think people also waste a lot of time because they feel like we should have this, we should have a personal brand. So one is, people buy from people. The other one is positioning matters a huge amount. And I also think generally for marketing, like just do one thing really well and scale that. I think startups generally try and do too many different channels and spread themselves too thin when it's like the companies that really scale fast, they just do one thing really well.
Yeah. I would say like in picking up on the idea of people buy from people, one of like the strongest well, it's not a strategy, but maybe that results on like new cabin bookings is people buy from people. So word of mouth. How do you ensure that, for example, as soon as someone finishes like his or her cabin experience, is there any like a post booking conversation? Like how serious do you take like the feedback from them, from the people that booked, in order just to improve future features, assets? Is it something that you take into account, or
Yeah.
like the the post experience?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a couple of things in there. I think one, take it very seriously, especially the feedback. So we'll try and get as much feedback as we can. People are often very generous with that, which is awesome. And we have um, we have a process in place to really kind of digest that as a team and analyze it and make changes off the back of it. So that is an incredibly useful tool for us. And then it's a really interesting one with the post-stay experience, and it's something that I think there's much more room to do with, because the difficulty is that when people go out to their life and switch back on their phone, suddenly you're faced with life again, and you're kind of back in it, and it can almost be quite overwhelming. So the last thing we want to do is bombard you with stuff. And so I think the focus from our end increasingly is like, how do we help ease people back into into their daily life? And that's a tough problem to solve. I would say we haven't fully mastered that yet, but yeah, it's we want to make sure that we're not just really helping people out for those 3 days and then abandoning them, and actually it's a continuation. And how can we support people in being more unplugged when they're back home and just making that transition back into daily life. So yeah, I think it's a huge experience, a huge part of the experience, and something that we haven't fully cracked. But I think the good thing is that giving people the space in the first place just means that they tend to come back with a better plan. So it doesn't solve all your problems going offline for 3 days, but it does give you the space to think about how to solve your problems, which I think is very valuable.
While you were answering, I was already just visualizing like some post stay, because in the end, and I really love the idea of changing behaviors, and somehow you are creating like this unplugged tribe, or the unpluggers, because in the end, this is a mindset. This is like a piece of the puzzle, of the human puzzle of, yes, you need to manage in the best way possible your relationship with the screen, with technology, especially with the phone. And I was just, while you were talking about this post experience stay, I was just thinking about like this unpluggers experience where, yes, your stay is finished, but how can we keep the guest close to us and still continue to add value? And just like you said, I see lots of potential on this, because again, you can build like this tribe, this unplugged tribe with a different mindset. Was there ever, or like, can you share a moment, if there's any, where you thought, my friends, this might not work? And if there's a moment like this, how was it possible for you to navigate this moment?
Yeah, it's interesting. There have been many moments where I've thought like, fuck, how are we going to get through this? But what's interesting is I've never thought it wouldn't work. I've never thought, I've never questioned, should we be doing this? I've always had this kind of innate belief that we'll find a way through, which I think is helpful, definitely. But there'll be times when, we've had times when we have been very on the brink funding wise, like 3-4 years ago. And I remember one particular day when we needed 100 grand in 3 weeks or something like that. And a couple of investors that I was hoping to get it from, and both of them dropped out on the same day. I was on a site visit, and driving back to London, just sitting there in the evening, just being like, why the fuck are we doing this? So there are some very low points like that when you just think you just can't see the path forward anymore. But then, you just turn up the next day and the next day, and there's always a way. There's always deeper you can dig, and startups are amazingly resilient as well. Like, they're so much more resilient than they feel. There've been many times when it feels like this is ropey now. But one big learning from that previous startup experience is that we've really got in some messy situations, and we got through them always. And the time when we had to do these layoffs, when I left, the company was in a terrible state, but the CEO stayed on. He spent the next 2 years just turning up every day, and went through 4 failed acquisition attempts, all of which would have been fire sales effectively, if they were losing money. And eventually got it to profitable, and then Revolut came along and bought them, and it was Revolut's first ever acquisition. So yeah, there's it's amazing what you can achieve by just turning up and just believing that you'll find a way through.
Okay. Is there any brand or any project that you talked about, like this personal brands, founder-led businesses? Is there any brands that you admire for like their customer obsession, or they are trying to also create new needs, new healthy needs in humans, or that you admire for their mission? Are there any brand examples that you like to share?
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of missions I admire. I think there's something about so absorbed in our own mission that it's hard to completely resonate. And I think the best brands are almost like a bit unusual in just their obsession around a problem. And I think that's what really stands out. So one brand that comes to mind, I love the simplicity of it. I love how they're approaching it. It's a company called Bold Bean Co. in the UK, which is just, it's beans, it's chickpeas or butter beans or whatever it is. But they've made an amazing product. So somehow it manages to be way more tasty than the beans you would buy in a supermarket. And then Amelia, who's the founder, again, posts very regularly on LinkedIn about it. And they have their Instagram is called Bean Obsessed. And it's just taking a very simple solution, which is beans, whole foods, to the problem around, there's and she could tell you much better than me, but the sustainable element, the mess that our food chain is, ultra processed food. Like there's many different things they're tackling. What I love is they built just a really incredible movement and momentum around this very simple idea and just making something simple as beans sexy. So I think what really inspires me is simple solutions. I'm a pretty simple guy at the end of the day. And I think when brands can really create this movement around a very simple idea, and that's hopefully what we're trying to do at Unplugged. I think that's incredibly powerful, and also if it's something that really works, I think that is really important. Like, is this a product that is actually great and it is actually much better than the alternatives, and does it actually make a positive stamp on people's lives? So yeah, that's one company that comes to mind.
Mm. If you had to go back and give day one Hector a piece of advice about building a brand, what would it be?
It's an interesting one because there's a great quote which is "Beware of wisdom not earned," and what that means is that the only way to learn is to go and make the mistake. So Hector back then has got a ton of mistakes in front of him, and there are so many insights I could tell him now about how we think about the business, how we think about the manufacturing of the cabins, the financing of the cabins, the marketing. Like there are so many tactical tidbits, but I think for his development, I would just say just go for it, keep going, and go and make all those mistakes you're going to make, because that's the best way to learn.
Again, keeping it simple, right?
Simple.
Just go for it.
Go for it. Yeah.
One last question that I would like to ask you is, if Unplugged, the project, your business, suddenly disappear tomorrow, and you can already start to imagine this, what real impact would you have wanted to leave behind? Like, Unplugged tomorrow, gone, vanished. What would be the real impact?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I hope, one, I hope we don't disappear tomorrow, and two, I hope that we've done enough already to have sparked that conversation. And we've had over 10,000 people come and stay. And I hope that we've made enough of a mark there where we've opened people's eyes to what is possible and the benefits of coming to do this. So I would like to think that if we disappeared tomorrow, then that movement would live on, and that kind of desire to go and do this and desire to live a more unplugged life people will continue to talk about it. They continue to go and try new experiences and try new things and really prioritize this. So I feel like, the cat's out the bag to some extent now, where we've done enough that we've got something moving. I think, again, by growing, by succeeding, we can really accelerate that and really, really turn it into something special. But I'd like to think that there's enough of a spark there already.
Where can people go to learn more about Unplugged, and also because you are active on I was about to say super active. You are active on LinkedIn. Where they can go to learn more about Unplugged and also your journey.
Yeah, for sure. So website just unplugged.rest. Same on Instagram. Then I'm just Hector Hughes on LinkedIn. Write a newsletter occasionally, which is linked on there as well on Substack. So that's it. But yeah, would love to hear from anyone. And yeah, thanks so much for having me.
So that's it. Really, Hector, thank you so much for being here. One of the things that I'm a super fan of what you're building, not only from like this brand perspective, brand building perspective, but also the mission and the purpose, which is obviously a topic that I'm really, really into. I'm really looking forward to see where Unplugged goes next. But like for now, obviously, I really love to thank you for your time, for sharing your insights, for sharing a little bit more about your journey, and for accepting the invite for this first comeback episode. And I'm looking forward to keep in touch with you.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Francisco, really awesome to chat, and congratulations on the comeback, and very much look forward to listening to future episodes. But yeah, it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. Let's keep in touch. Thank you so much.